You're listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a podcast dedicated to solving the billing issues and gridlock facing the healthcare industry, presented by ProChant, hosted by Chuck Ellis and Rachel Schools.
Well, hey there, folks. Chuck here, and welcome to another edition of the Modern Healthcare Back Office. I am so excited today because this is a special episode where I am joined by my co-host, Ms. Rachel Schools. How you doing, Rachel?
I am amazing, Chuck. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thank you for asking. And I am saying that this is a super special episode because
We're doing something
you
weird.
are our special guest today. And the reason for that is you have been talking about this as a champion in our kind of work culture a while now, and it's such a fascinating thing that I think it's worth sharing. And it's quantum leadership, and I think that's such a fascinating thing. So we're going to spend today's episode talking about that and how that is a underutilized feature in healthcare back office processes and how it incorporates into this line of work. So let's start right off with the beginning. And Rachel, tell us, what is quantum leadership?
Wow. It's almost like you asking me, Chuck, what is magic?
What is magic?
Where do I start? It is quantum leadership.
So let's talk quantum first of all.
So, quantum leadership, it's a new and developing approach to leadership that really emphasizes the principles of quantum physics. And I'm going to get a little weird here for a second, like interconnectedness,
Love it.
non-locality, the observer effect. It is really, truly a revolutionary way to lead that is more in line with the times. And I want to break that down because I know you're probably like, what are you talking about?
I am, in fact.
It's like, what am I talking about? Okay.
What just happened? Those
So-
were certainly words that you said.
All right. So let's look at sort of traditional leadership or the traditional way that an office works, right? Think about org chart.
Mm-hmm.
It's very boxy, very linear,
Mm-hmm.
and there is a very clear reporting structure, right? There is somebody at the very top who is saying, this is how things are going to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have your next layer down that's sort of integrating, and then your directors that are executing, and then you have your teams that are each performing their functional jobs,
Right.
right? And that came to us through scientific theory.
Mhm.
Those are very scientific approaches to how to structure an organization. And most of the most popular management theories that we apply are very much inspired by science. So that's what Taylor, Newton, right? Where the organization is very, very broken down. You're taking into account like Six Sigma, and you're very hard focused on production and quality,
Mm-hmm.
right? So in our industry, that's super important, right? What we've talked about traditionally or what we've talked about to date is all very important stuff, like best practice recommendations for various processes or specifically how to break things down to make them work. Quantum blows that out of the water.
Mm-hmm.
And rather than anybody coming in and saying, this is how things are going to work, you take a different approach. You go to your team first. You go all the way to the very bottom, and you care too, right?
Sure.
And you say, hey, this is what we're trying to achieve. How do you think you can get us here? And rather than individual parts adding up to a certain amount, you sort of unleash superpowers in your team, and everybody starts creatively creating things that you could never have possibly thought of.
Mm-hmm.
So let me just what if I went through maybe some principles of quantum leadership?
Yeah. Let's start pretty basic, because I've heard you talk about this before, and I'm still pretty unsure of where the quantum stuff fits in. So yeah, let's do that.
So let's look at one principle of quantum leadership. So inclusive. I'm never going to say it right. Inclusivity.
Yep, that's it.
Okay. So, quantum leadership is a type of leadership that encourages a much more inclusive and collaborative approach to leadership. In this model, Chuck, in the quantum model, there really aren't even bosses.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's a collaborative approach to leadership where rather than relying on a single leader to make decisions, it involves all of your members of teams that are making decisions
Hmm.
where these teams are working together, not in a structured, boxed in kind of way, but almost you have these pods and these nodes that are working together and connecting to solve problems in creative ways. In other words, think of a team where maybe I'm cash posting and there's a big AR problem, right? Maybe we have a meeting once a day where I know that I'm going to be done with my cash posting an hour early. And I'm like, hey, you know what? I can see that you need some help over there for a minute. Can I pop over there and help and come back?
Right.
So, inclusivity. Another key element of quantum leadership is empowerment. Often when we come in and we do a job, we're trained, like I said in the old models, we're trained just to do that job, right? Quantum leadership wants to empower people, right? The leaders want to empower their people to bring them decisions and have autonomy to make decisions as long as those decisions that are being made fall within the core guardrails, right? Am I making the right decision? These are my core guardrails. You don't, in a quantum environment, want people to have to stop and ask you every single time, can I do this? Right?
Right. Hmm.
So, another principle, I mentioned this word earlier and you were like, what? Another principle of quantum leadership is interconnectedness.
Hmm.
So, in the quantum organization, it's understood. So let's back up and remember I told you that most work happens in sort of a work silo.
Right.
So if you're cash posting and there's this sort of line drawn between cash posting and working a rejection on a claim. And there's that line drawn between those things and confirming a sales order, right?
Hmm.
And the quantum leader recognizes the interconnectedness of all of those things. So the cash, even though it happens in a different department and it's very segmented and streamlined, that order confirmation is not at all disconnected from that cash posting, nor is that cash posting disconnected from order confirmation. So,
Hmm.
in a quantum organization, the leaders and the team members, even though they may have a functional job, everybody that is participating, whether it's from a leadership perspective or on the floor, everybody that has a job is constantly aware of how what they are doing is impacting
Hmm.
others.
Sure, because it's like we say all the time, like when we're talking like the folks on the sales team and I'm on the marketing side, it may seem like we're two separate silos interacting in a similar process, but if our goals aren't aligned, and we had this issue, and I've seen it at several companies before, and we've changed it, where the goal is okay, well, my goal as a marketer is to get this many leads. Like it doesn't like I don't do anything with the leads but give them to sales. And so if my goal is to get as many leads as I can as quickly as I can, guess what? They're probably not going to be very high quality leads. So then I give those to sales and
Right.
I don't think about the interconnectedness of what happens when I give poor quality leads to sales because that's not part of my if I'm not connected with them, that's not something I think about. But if I think about what happens to these things when I pass them on or when they go down the line, what do I think of these, not just as their leads, but people? Are these the right people?
You you just brought up something very, very
Hmm.
important because if I'm not meeting with sales, like
Hmm.
how do I know that, right? So one of the very strange things about a quantum team, and this is where it's very hard to implement this because everybody does have their individual job, right? Like Chuck, you and I work
Sure.
in sales and marketing. We don't cross our paths every day. But one of the, I don't know the word I'm looking for. One of the things that you will notice with a quantum team is they
Hmm.
meet a lot. And I don't mean a lot as in they take up a lot of time, But quantum leadership is where you put your whole team together because it is so collaborative, and you commit to spending X amount of time together for a period of the day, and you just bring up your problems. And if somebody can help you, great. And if they can't, at least you tried. But then you're team building and you're talking and you are learning each other as a team,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think we can all agree we've all been in those situations where once we do get to where we're really working with our team, we might realize we're working on the same thing.
Exactly.
And you might realize that you have 3 redundant steps that you're taking that could be eliminated.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's what a quantum team does, is they come together and they understand, like, hey, we may not really have anything to talk about, but what if we just start talking?
Mm.
And things naturally sort of evolve out of that.
Right.
So, what are some benefits of a quantum team? What if
Mm.
I tell you that?
Yes, please.
Because I think we've all been on the dysfunctional team or read the 7 dysfunctions of a team and this, that, and the other. We've probably consumed every leadership book we can possibly think of, right? And quantum is different, very
Mhm.
different. It's almost like the holistic approach to leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And you see right now in the world, weird things are happening, right?
Sure.
Holistic approach is coming for everything. So, some benefits of quantum leadership: innovation. So, one of the things that is allowed to happen when you have a quantum team evolve, right? A team that works well together, there's a lot of synergy, there's a lot of alchemy, right?
Mm-hmm.
When when these people get together, it encourages innovation because it's inclusive, it's collaborative, it gives a safe place for people to come together and sort of share ideas and make decisions together. You are able to get like a more diverse perspective and additional ideas because instead of you having a problem, let's say I identify the problem, Chuck, you hand that off to somebody else, and then they hand it off to somebody else. And the typical approach is what? Somebody just sits with it
Exactly.
and they try to figure it out on their own. Not me. I never have. I've always been a quantum leader. I go and pull everybody I can possibly think of, and I'll just float an idea and say, like, a problem. And, like, if you don't think you can help, hang up. If you do, please stay. So that's innovation, though, right? Because
Exactly.
I may have sat there and thought about a problem for 5 hours, 10 hours, 100 hours. But when you bring a team together, you're curating a custom response that is incredibly innovative.
Mhm.
The other thing that this does is it increases engagement. And I know that, you know, what I see this all the time as I'm consulting, right? I'm not only looking at workflows and best practices, right? I'm always asked, can you help my team? Right? My team, can we help with engagement? And quantum leadership or the quantum org approach it definitely increases engagement because it so emphasizes the importance of empowering everyone and giving them that autonomy.
Mm-hmm.
Problem solving, I already hit on that, right? It definitely boosts problem solving capabilities because you're doing it with a group and you're getting unique perspective. Here's the key. Here's the good one. Quantum organizations are much more adaptable to change. And that's because as part of transforming to a quantum organization and being empowered by a quantum leader, you know your job very well, but you also come to know the rest of the jobs as well. And what that allows you to do is see places quickly where you can optimize, improve and be incredibly adaptive and responsive to change. Now, do not get me wrong, Chuck. In revenue cycle management, a cash poster should be posting cash,
Right.
right? Like I am not
Ideally, yes.
I am not saying go from posting cash today to confirming orders tomorrow. What I'm saying is reserve a little bit of your team's day to work together and make sure that you come to holistically understand what it is that you're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Improved organizational culture is another key benefit of quantum leadership. So, because as you've heard me talk, right, it's very much about being hands on and focusing on relationships in your team. It just naturally sort of improves your culture because you start to get people together that are very diverse. One starts to learn a little bit more every day about something else, and it helps you build a custom culture because we have many different cultures that we work with, right? It builds a custom one that is your organizational culture sort of formed out of love
Mm-hmm.
and motivation. Be another key benefit.
Nice. So when it comes to putting all of this together and implementing it, like what are some exercises or some practical steps that somebody who is in a managerial position in a healthcare back office could take to start implementing these types of things?
Read.
Okay.
Number one is read, right? So find some books that talk about quantum leadership. I have a couple,
Mm-hmm.
Chuck, that I can think of right off the top of my
Sure.
head. So there is an author, I know I'm probably going to say this name wrong, but it's Dana Zohar, Zohar. And there are a series of books. One of them is, I believe, just The Quantum Leader. Another one is called Zero Distance. It is a pretty deep topic. Number one recommendation really is read. It will help you sort of
Mm-hmm.
really understand because I've barely scratched the surface of what quantum leadership really is. So number one is read. And then second thing that I would say is, and this is the key to quantum leadership, right? You've all read books, or we've all read books where it tells you teams don't fail, leaders do,
Mm-hmm.
right? Quantum leadership is, in order to sort of roll into that, you have to embody that as a fact and know that if I focus on being the very best person or me I can be, right, in this very situation, or if I set the right intent, that sort of rolls out. So quantum leadership is all about learning to know yourself first. And really, that's it.
To thine own self be true.
It's actually that simple, although that it's not quite that simple.
Well, yeah.
But
Well, this is really fascinating because again, a lot of this feels like common sense, but it also kind of flies in the face of so much of, I won't say modern, but 20th century, not to pick on HR too much, but org chart development, like the categorization, the conversion of a team into an asset or of individual assets rather than this holistic group of people that is working towards a common goal. And it's kind of interesting. I'd be fascinated to see, like, at scale, how something like this works when it's implemented.
there is something we could do on another episode.
Okay.
We could, I don't know if we can do this or not, Chuck, but it has been rolled out, like Volvo has. So there are definitely organizations that have already done this.
Okay.
And are already trying it. And as a matter of fact, I'm pretty sure the top ones,
Mm-hmm.
but for sure Volvo has done this. And when you start talking about org charts, the future of org charts, do we both agree that we've just slid into the future?
I think so. I think we've talked about this before, but 2020 was basically the watershed moment for everything. Like everything that was every sacred cow that was the classic professional office design went out the window.
Gone.
And then there are some people who are re-implementing that, and that's up to them. But there are a lot of really smart people that are going, hey, there's a lot of stuff that we were doing that we were just doing because that's what we were told to do, or that's what we thought was the right way to do things, or that was how it had to happen. And now we know for a fact that's not how it has to happen. None of this has to be this way.
Quantum leadership is walking up to every one of your employees, Chuck, and saying, stop what you're doing and ask why you're doing this right now, please.
Yeah. No. And that is
And-
a deep question. Like, that's just like why are you here?
Why are you doing
why are you
well,
doing
why are
this?
you
What is
doing this?
yeah, what is it?
Do we have to
Yeah.
do this?
Is this
So
and it's interesting and I think for folks in the marketing world, a lot of that has been there's been a dramatic shift in that as well because for years, especially with internet, everything came down to metrics and measuring and every little bit had to be accounted for and people don't work that way. Like I was actually
no.
asked by somebody at one of my previous companies, like, what is the value of a click on our site? Like not a visit to our site, like a click. And I was like, really? We need to know that? Like at the end of the day, what matters is, are we solving people's problems? Are we making our clients as happy as possible? And are we demonstrating to the world why people should trust us with a partnership? And
Exactly.
and once you stop focusing on did we get this many clicks on this many social posts or did this post go viral or did this one get this many views and we focus more on things like what's our net promoter score? What are our clients happy with us? Are people coming to us and saying, "Hey, I want to work with you because you seem like a trustworthy company and I've heard great things from people who have worked with you and are writing reviews about you." And are you focusing on the things that make people trust? And the things that make people trust are not charts and clicks and stuff, especially since a lot of these companies like Facebook have been taken to task for massively elevating numbers or
Mhm.
fudging statistics and the fact that you can't even fully trust the analytics of your third party partners on stuff like this. So at the end of the day, the thing that matters is
Are you hitting your
are you
goals?
hitting your
End in mind.
are your goals working? And it's weird because in marketing, and I promise I'll stop talking about marketing because this isn't a marketing show, but in my line of work, we went from a world where there was a lot of unknowns, like with radio and TV advertising. You don't really know how many people were seeing your ad or seeing your print article or your print advertisement in a magazine or a trade paper. And then we went from that to every little detail has to be accounted for. And I worked for companies that were like that. And now, fortunately, a lot of really smart companies like ours are switching back to this whole like being okay with a little unknown. Like if we approach this not as how do we get the absolute most amount of clicks or the most amount of whatever, like does it matter that we post this many times a week or does it matter that we get people saying, "Hey, that really helped me." And which one is really going to convert people? Is it being helpful or is it just a game of numbers? We just
This would be where your team and it is very much the same because you have metrics that you're trying to hit in
sure.
marketing just like we do over here on this side,
And
right?
that's not to say that you throw out all metrics. Of course you
Oh, you
can't do
don't.
that.
Oh,
But
no.
it's but like you said, like it's really it was a lot of people, especially around 2020, had to stop and go, does it matter that I get this many likes on a LinkedIn post? Does it matter that we got this many views on this ad? Or does it matter that we are able to perfectly track all of this stuff? Shouldn't we focus on our messaging, focus on how we benefit the client, and then champion that and champion the client? And we go, okay, well, if we're doing this and we see the end numbers go up, that's good. Could it be better? Sure, probably. But let's focus more on continuing to improve that experience and let the numbers tell us if we're doing a good job or a bad job.
The
Yeah.
quantum leader in me says that is exactly right, Chuck. It sounds like we put those metrics in place based on what we thought would work or what we
Right.
thought was really important. So what we should have been doing is looking at what did work and backtracking into it to figure out what we should be
Right.
measuring.
Well, and it was a cultural thing too, because it came down to like people going, okay, well, and this is tricky because our line of work with AR and stuff like that, it is very much a granular thing, and it's very easy to go, okay, well, our job is all about making sure that this balance sheet ends up right, or we're getting the right closes on this, or
Or
we
was
got
our
all our
big
cash.
thing,
So
right?
you it's very easy to take this thing that is a very concrete and these are the numbers and the numbers don't lie and then step back culturally and not apply that to everything else. And I think that's, like I said, the good thing is that a lot of companies, a lot of the really smart companies are shifting that process and going, oh, right, the numbers are the numbers and the people are people. And,
People are people is quantum.
and if we don't treat them like numbers, first of all, they're going to be a lot happier. They're not going to turn over as much. We're going to get better results from them, and we're going to get,
Happy employees do better
yeah,
work.
and we're going to have happy clients because happy employees lead
Have
to
been
happy,
empowered
yeah,
to take care of them,
yeah.
right?
It's
Yeah.
yeah, it's the there's a story I heard about he was a motivational speaker or a keynote speaker that was he was in a out of town. He was in a big city. He realized that he had a stain on the shirt that he wanted to wear that day to speak in. And it was early in the morning and he had just enough time to go out, and he went to a general department store, like a discount department store. And they were like, sorry, we're closed. Come back at 10. And he's like, well, I don't have that time. I'm speaking at 10. And he by Nordstrom's, and Nordstrom was also closed, and he didn't think, oh, well, I can't. He was thinking, I don't shop at Nordstrom. That's too expensive. But he was desperate, and he knocked on the door there. And even though they were closed, they welcomed him in. They showed him the shirts. They sold him an $83 shirt. And he said, I never paid $83 for an article of clothing in my life. And I gladly paid it. And now I'm a lifelong Nordstrom customer because those employees, there's no account or piece of data that says if we do this nice thing or if we bend the rules, it's going to make people shop this much more or do this much whatever.
But they did
But
it
they did
because
it
it was
because it was the
right.
right thing to do, and because people who work at Nordstrom's are happy people. They treat their employees well, and they champion the customer. And
Yep.
you champion that experience, and instead of focusing, it's amazing how much money people will spend on consultants and insights on how to save money, but they won't
But
spend that
you
same
can do
amount
it
of
right
effort.
there with your employees.
Yeah, they won't
Yes.
spend that same amount of
Mhm.
money or effort in improving the employee morale or employing client satisfaction. And that's the trick. And that's why I'm
And I
so
have
oh, good.
this is real. I'm going to be real for a second, right?
Sure.
We're in weird times
Mm-hmm.
in this industry. I've always followed quantum leadership even before it was a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had a paper, one of my capstone papers in college. We, in organizational behavior, we were tasked with coming up with a way to basically take a large company and change the culture where it was here in America, India, and Philippines, right? And we had to pick one of the models. Like I was like, none of these, I made up my own, and it's kind of like this, right?
Right.
So sort of always taken that approach. It's not the norm. We're in weird times. And, outsourcing used to almost be a dirty word, right?
Mm-hmm.
But we are sitting in times where people are like, really can't keep up. We have more jobs than we have humans to fill those jobs. What for whatever reason that may be. I believe a lot of people have started their own businesses and doing their own things. That's awesome, right? But we are at a point where we're having to open up, sort of expand our mind and open our mind to new possibilities like co-sourcing and outsourcing. But the better job you do of going ahead and optimizing things before you outsource, the more successful you're going to be, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we absolutely offer consulting for things like that, workflow consulting and things like that, but you still want to you still want to address your leadership, and you still want to try to get things as smoothed out as possible. That way that partnership is most successful.
Exactly.
So
Wow. Heady episode today. Excited about part 2. If anyone has any questions or wants to talk about quantum leadership with you, how do they reach you, Rachel?
they can find me on LinkedIn, Rachel Schools.
All righty. And if you have any questions about the show, you can email me at chuckellis@prochant.com. I want to thank you all for listening and making it to the end of the episode. If you are watching this on YouTube, please give it a like and subscribe, and share this episode with your friends or your colleagues if you think it's interesting. If you want to know more about the show or being a guest on it, you can again email me at chuckellis@prochant.com. And again, stay tuned because we got a lot of really cool stuff coming up. We got more infusion based stuff. We got more HME stuff. We got our first round of guests coming up very soon. I'm very excited about that. And again, thank you so much for being here. We'll see you next time. Take care.
Thanks for listening to the Modern Healthcare Back Office, a presentation of ProChant, a wholly owned revenue cycle management service dedicated to serving HME, pharmacy, infusion, and other healthcare providers. Learn more about us at prochant.com.